Greetings, everyone. This is Mike Riley, the voice of Ironman. And this is the Old School Tri Show with my Kiwi mates Cameron Harper and Brian Ashby. The show that talks about all things triathlon, old and new. We're powered by Ansco Foods, bringing you nutrition and good health from New Zealand's beef and lamb. Thanks for listening, everyone. Enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome along to another episode of the Old School Tri Show, brought to you by our great friends at Ansco Foods. This is part 2. We did part 1 last week. Part 2 ready now, Brian, with the legend.
Yes, Cameron Brown joins us now. In part 1, we looked at his first 5 titles. There were plenty more to come, but things didn't start quite so well for Cameron Brown in 2006.
Ansco Foods is proud to be the new naming partner of Ironman New Zealand, ensuring every stroke, pedal and stride is powered by the best nature has to offer. Ansco Foods is on a mission to bring nutrition and good health from New Zealand's finest beef and lamb. Ansco Foods, putting the iron in Ironman with New Zealand's finest beef and lamb. Visit anscofoods.com/Ironman to find out more.
Well, welcome to the Old School Tri Show. We've had a good long chat in part 1 of our chat with Cameron Brown, looking at the front half of his career, how he got to Ironman and his first 5 wins at Ironman New Zealand. Cameron, great to have you back on board with us. 2006 rolls around. You've enjoyed some success at Kona with podium spots there. Suddenly, through no fault of your own, things got really weird in Taupo at Ironman New Zealand.
Yeah, we had a weather bomb hit the country, and race morning turned up, and we went down to the swim start, and there was people were surfing on the lake. It was absolutely freezing cold and pretty bad conditions. So they ended up we had a meeting, and we were going to do a rolling start, bike start, down to the Napier Taupo highway. It was turned into a 90k bike and a 21k run. And so I went back, and it was a delayed start, so I think it was a few hours, and went back, had some food, and ended up missing that. They said they were going to do that, and then they had a elite briefing, which I didn't bother turning it up to, because they'd said that that was the thing that we're going to do. And then came back, and it was turned out it was going to be a time trial, and I was to go off first, the number 1 athlete. And pretty much, in cycling, it's your number 1 athlete is goes last. So I went off first, and a minute behind was big Arjan Johansson, who was a 6'5" Estonian giant, and pretty much all he had to do was just catch me on the bike. So he did that, and within probably the first 30-40 k's, and then we came off the bike together, and I tried my best to try and get away from him, and managed to put, I think, maybe 30-40 seconds into him, but it just wasn't enough. He knew what he had to do to win the race and stay as close as he did over that 21 k's, and ended up winning that day. It was a weird situation, because I crossed the line in first place, but he crossed the line, I think, 30-40 seconds later. But because he started a minute behind, he took the win. So it was I had a few words to say after that race. Got myself in trouble with probably a few people at Ironman, and probably weren't on speaking terms for a little bit after that. But all was sort of forgiven after that. But it was just a horrible day to be at, when you train so hard for an Ironman, like everyone that started that day. But to make it end up as a 90k and a 21k run, you just you felt pretty empty at the finish line, and took me a bit of time to get over that disappointment.
That race, Cam, I remember exactly that, and it started quite a bit later as well. It sort of started mid-morning in the end, I think it was. So in those days for Ironman racing, they didn't really have any sort of plan around backup days or anything like that. It was happening on that day, and this is sort of the first time that they'd really ever experienced anything like that they had to make these sort of decisions.
Yeah. So it was all done, that morning, and you just, one of those things that you probably never expected to ever happen. Everyone thought, the race would happen, with a bomb like that, but it was pretty severe, and by the time they sort of got around to it, there was no way of having 180 k's and 42 k's because we started so late that people would be finishing 3 o'clock in the morning. So it just it couldn't unfold, and the swim was you just couldn't have had the swim that day. It was just that rough, and people would have drowned out there. As a professional, I would have raced in it because I just was brought up in racing in all conditions, and I would have love to have a body surf down a wave to finish off a swim, but there's only 1% of the athletes out there that are professionals and probably capable of doing swimming in those conditions, and the rest it's just too dangerous to take part in.
You mentioned you missed the briefing because obviously things had happened. You'd gone away to fuel up and things like that. But just I wonder, what was the atmosphere like, the vibe amongst the professionals? How much sort of anger and volatility was there around the decisions that were made? How was everyone sort of feeling about it all?
Yeah, I mean, I was told, before that, this was what was going to happen. It was going to be a rolling start. So I thought, yep, that's okay, sweet, we're doing that. And then I thought there was going to be no change. And then, there was Greg Frayne, who was, a fantastic athlete and cyclist in his day. He questioned it, saying, you don't have the number one athlete going on first. They go off last. And, but, it was shut down very, very quickly. And that was it. I was going off first, and when I got up to there, thinking I was, still in a rolling start situation, to now be a time trial format and going off first, I just couldn't believe it. So it was pretty frustrating, but that was my fault for not turning up. I would have probably said the same thing, but it wouldn't have changed anything. They'd decided on that was the format they were doing, but it was a bit of a crazy format, really.
Was your head out of the game at that point?
No, but it was just I was very, very frustrated that that scenario had happened, and when you were told from the highest level that this is what we were going to do, and then it changed within an hour to and then you from those days of watch the Tour of France every year and knowing that your fastest goes off last. It was just very, very frustrating that they didn't commit to that sort of scenario. But that's history.
I remember meeting Ian Johansson, and at first, because he's a big dude, like you say, 6'5" from Estonia, like Marco Albert. He's a big, tall boy too. Now they breed them big over in that part of the world. But at first, I thought he was like security or something. He's a giant, hey. And I remember he came over from, I think he's based in Sydney, and he came across with a sponsor of some sort. And there's a lady from the sponsor was looking after him. And I also vividly remember him turning up to the bike mechanics. It might have been Marshall or someone like that, and said to him, "You'll pump my tyres 200 psi." He wanted 200 psi on his tyres, and I mean it was just quite incredible. But had you ever heard of this dude before that race? Like, was he well known on the circuit at all?
Yeah, I can't remember if I had. You always knew the start list in the last couple of weeks and that, but. I probably didn't. So it was. You knew a few of their results, but I can't remember if I did know of them at that stage, but certainly knew of him afterwards. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's a heck of a nice fellow. We'll get him on and have a chat to him at some point. He's a lovely guy. He's race director for an Ironman in Estonia these days, so still involved in the sport.
Yeah.
And he went on, I think, that year. But obviously set him up pretty well because he went on and I think he won in Lanzarote, didn't he? Which is a pretty brutal sort of course. I mean, setting aside all the, the dramas around it, how tough was it out there that day? I remember sort of Karen Ballant saying it was one of the toughest days that she'd been involved in.
Yeah, it was brutal. I mean, we were lucky on the bike really because. I mean, I would have ridden a disc wheel if I was pretty scared that because it was just blowing straight off the lakefront. But it was really, going out to the turnaround and coming back was just a tailwind. Going out, you were going 60 k's an hour at some point on the flat, and then coming home was just brutal. You were just, headwind all the way home. And then on the lakefront, when you were running, it was, I probably should have been smarter and ran behind Yuan for, probably the first few Ks, but because you were just getting flicked by the wind. And being the size he was, I would have got great protection, but I just needed to try and, claw back the minute he had caught up on the bike. So I just went for it. But, the wind along that lakefront was really the only dangerous point. Once you got over the hill on the bike, it was absolutely fine. But the run conditions were pretty tough as well, because you just had a side wind the whole time.
Speaking of old school training partners and results, Andrew Youngie out of Wellington got third that day. Yeah, I think he was stoked that Winswim didn't go ahead because it was never a strong point. But good bike runner though, wasn't he?
Yeah, great for any duathletes out there that day, that's for sure.
So what was your mindset then? 12 months later, 2007, you come back and, again, you're on the top spot of the podium, but, were you racing with anger? Did you ever consider not coming back?
No, it was just, it was part of the ritual of summer to race there. And so it was, happening no matter what. I was on the start line and, had a great end of the year with a second in Hawaii. That was a fantastic race for me. The year before, and I'd had a shocker and finished way back. So it was fantastic to win in 2006 again.
Luke Bell, I think, second, and Torbjorn Simbali third. Luke was sort of on the rise at that stage, and there wasn't sort of too much, just over a minute sort of separating you between first and second. So just how tough a day was that?
It was probably the hardest day I've ever had.
It was the year you were sick, wasn't it? That was your sick year. Yes.
Yeah. So, I came down with a vomiting virus and out both ends. And so 24 hours before the race, I pretty much thought I wouldn't start. I was in the worst shape I've ever been. And my old Mark Watson said to me, go get a feed of McDonald's that night. So Friday night, I'd tried to get it was the only thing I'd probably eaten in nearly 2 days, and got a Big Mac and fries in me, and managed to somehow scrape through and win the race. Only just, Luke pushed me the whole way and only got away from him late on the run. And I think I was in medical for an hour after that, and pretty embarrassing, situation afterwards with them trying to, I just had everything coming out everywhere. So it was a horrible day of feelings, but pretty cool to win that day as well, because I'd overcome a lot to win that race, but probably put myself in deep hurt for probably a month after that. It was it took a lot of recovery time to get well again.
This is the voice of Ironman, Mike Riley, and this is another edition of the Old School Tri Show with my Kiwi mates Cameron Harper and Brian Ashby.
Yeah, so we roll on into 2008, and I guess it's a time where suddenly we start to see the emergence of Kiwi young guns, this time in the form of the dreadlocked fella, in the form of Kieran Doe with the trucker cap coming in. Again, you finished top of the podium, but it's a good scrap. An 8:24, a good respectable time for you. Frederik van der Leerd, I think second, and Kieran Doe, just one of these young guys who's come out of short course and he's stepping up. And I guess you'd been around for a wee while now, and people are saying, okay, it's time for a change of the guard. What was it like just having a Kiwi like this presenting a genuine challenge?
Yeah, old Doe boy, he could swim and bike, and swim and bike with the best. He went on to have a great result in Roth one year, and was with I think Chris McCormick nearly all day over there one year. So he was a phenomenal swimmer, and then just as good on the bike as well. So but had Freddie Van Leert as well, who would go on to win Hawaii as well later on in 2013, 14. So he pushed me all day as well, and I think it was a day of pretty bad conditions. I think it rained a lot of the day, and just a tough day when it rained in Taupo. It just slowed things down and made for tough conditions. So Ironman's tough on the best of days with sunshine and light winds, but when you have 4 seasons in the day in Taupo, then it makes everything that much harder. And, an 8:24 it may seem slow nowadays, but it's a good time really on when you look at the bikes we're on and the conditions we were in. That's for sure.
Your marathon is good. Sorry,
I remember being on the finish line with Mike Riley. We'll talk about Mike a bit later, but I remember being on the finish line. They used to have the commentary was in this big tower next to the finish line, and the rain was coming straight through, and they had it all shrink wrapped apart from the area you could see out of, and that's where the rain would come in. And we would I think a computer blow up, and Mike's just going. It was just all. I mean, Mike being a professional, it was just legendary as he always was. But gee whiz, it was challenging for everybody that day, I think.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. No, it's had quite a few races like that down there. That's for sure.
You sort of I guess looking at Van Leert and Doe and so on, it's just all about that trademark marathon for you, just that consistency and that belief at the back end for you. And I guess conversely for those guys that you're hunting down, I hate to think what their sort of thought processes were going on. What are those sort of guys saying to you afterwards? What was going on with them?
Yeah, it was just nice always to, when you came off that bike to have your strongest discipline to come and as I said, always would train, extremely hard over the summer season. You were running, 120K weeks, along with, 600-700 Ks on the bike. So you were exceptionally fit on the bike, but you were, every weekend you were out in the Waitaks, getting those runs in, and they paid massive dividends, at the end of an Ironman when you had that strength and that speed to do those runs and training. They just paid off on race day as well. So I think those guys knew that, I was a good runner. So if they had a bit of a lead, then I'd be trying to hunt them down as quickly as I could.
I remember in those days too, we'd do the pro press conferences, and it would be, on the Thursday or the Friday before the race. And you would often, a couple of years you sat there and someone would say to you, you're looking forward to tomorrow and all those usual sort of questions. And you'd always be like, it's just nice to know that I've got a sub 2:45 marathon in me. I've been training hard and I've got a sub 2:45 that I'm looking forward to getting into the run tomorrow. And you'd see these guys next to you thinking, and they're looking at each other going, well, I can't do that. It was quite interesting to watch.
Yeah, no, and it was just nice to have that at the end of the off the bike, knowing you were in that shape and pre-carbon shoe days. So running sub 2:45 on that course, because it's an undulating course. There's bugger all flat in it, and in those early years, it was just a 2-lap 21K out, one loop, sorry, and so it was a bloody hard run course as well. So. You didn't run along the lake shore like you have the luxury of now and have that flat section. It was just it was on the road the whole time, and you were just going up and down all day long.
I know that Brian and I have definitely got demons sitting out in that old airport hill from the olden days. We've got to need a wheelbarrow to go pick them up at some point, Brian. That was horrible, that hill, wasn't it?
Yeah, long hill. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, here's a weekend warrior story. The first time out there, second lap, heading for home, I put my head down and I thought, the Asian bloke in front of me further up, I'm not going to look up until I run up beside him. He was walking. I'll just keep my head down. I got to the top of the hill. I still haven't caught this bloke, and he was still walking. He was still just as far in front of me, and I was still running. So, Airport Hill, no. Yeah. No. Miserable place. 09. I just mentioned Kieran Doe and the emergence of young guys. Suddenly in 09, there's another young guy, another young Kiwi. There's another Kiwi I want to mention as well, but this one he's won world titles as a junior. I think he's possibly the 70.3 world champion by this stage, Terenzo Bizzoni. So a whole new challenge. This guy's stepping up, and there's a lot of hype surrounding him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Terenzo, he had no weaknesses whatsoever. Fantastic swimmer, biker, and runner over that, Olympic and 70.3 distance, and he was now testing himself at the Ironman level. So it was I was definitely worried about him, and there was Kieran as well, and those new boys they were pretty much. I think that year they might have, it was almost like they were teaming up on me to try and put it to me and give it back and see if they could take the title. So, but yeah, it was a tough day, that one, and I managed to I think break the record again in 8:18 maybe, or
8:18:05.
Yeah. And I think I ran 2:43 that day, did I? Or
I'll tell you, yes, you did 2:43:09. There you go.
Memory's not too bad at the moment, so
very good.
I remember the day because I think Terenzo was out in course, and I'd passed him at the turnaround, and he said, "Don't make us look too bad," because I think I had an 8-minute lead or something, and I think would he finish in 8:26 or something, or?
He wasn't. He was about 6 or 7 minutes down, wasn't he, Brian?
8:25:37.
Yeah. 7.5 down.
Yeah. So I know they'd put the hurt on me on the bike, and I wanted to do the same on the run. So I don't think I let up the whole day. It was I was feeling good and strong, and trying to break the course record is always nice as well. So I made sure I wanted to do that too.
I've often thought with Terenzo, I mean, you've got to race who's around at the time, but and he obviously went on to win the race and went under 8 hours a few years later, and probably one of the most complete races I think I've ever seen that day. But he must at some point over those years must have thought, man, if only Cameron Brown wasn't around, things could have panned out a bit differently. You could have had a few titles up the sleeve there,
He would have, definitely, yeah. I mean,
heck of an athlete though, eh? Heck of an athlete.
Fantastic athlete, yep. He was, one shitload of 70.3 races, and he was one of those guys that if he got on the start line, man, you were worried about him because you knew, he was he'd be in great shape, and he wanted to take that title. So he's
and arguably should have been an Olympian for this country as well.
Yeah, definitely. He's one of those guys that was hard done by selection policies, and that's another story. But he probably should have been definitely an Olympian as well.
Did he make you a better Ironman in the back half of your career, that rivalry you had at local level?
Oh, definitely, yeah. If you didn't have those guys pushing you, you probably wouldn't have trained as hard. But when you knew those guys were going to show up, it made you push yourself even harder over that summer to lead into that race, because I never wanted an easy win, or I wanted to win hard and try and make it a battle, and that's what it was out there every year. You got pushed every single. There was never an easy win, really. It was you wanted to be pushed, and that's why you did the sport, because man, it's one of the hardest sports in the world. Hardest one-day competitions out there. It's there's nothing easy about it. It's flipping bloody hard.
There's another guy I want to make mention of from the 2009 race, and he rocked home in 5th place, and he dipped his toes, I think, at Challenge Wanaka a wee bit, but he was a multi-sporter. He was a kayak bike runner, and he was really well established in that, and just a bit of a legend, really. And his name, of course, is Richard Usher. First time at Ironman New Zealand, and he comes home in 5th place. I guess the significance of him later on, we saw Dougal Allen doing the same thing. Never won at Ironman New Zealand, but he did win at Iron Distance. But it's barged down the door for someone that we really see at the top of the pile now in the form of Braden Currie. Did you looking at sort of Richard coming in at that stage, did you rate him as an athlete on the hard? This is an off-road bloke, and this is a whole new dynamic. So what was your sort of thinking around, what sort of threat a guy like this would bring?
Yeah, well, I mean, those guys, you don't win the coast to coast it's it's an incredibly hard race, and so man, I couldn't do that event. It's incredibly tough, and it's a race that's there's probably same conditions and same sort of feelings that you get from an Ironman. So it was one of those. He's one of those guys that, Richard, Dougal, and now Braden. They've all come from that background, and I think the kayaking helped their swimming. Same sort of upper body. So they were strong. They weren't fast swimmers, but Braden ended up excelling in his swimming. So where Dougal and Richard were not quite at that level, but still competitive in the swimming. But they were both fantastic. Well, Dougal was an incredible cyclist, and that's why he's on the America's Cup boat. And Richard was an incredible runner. So they all those multi-sport guys. You sort of, I think early on a lot of people would say, coast to coast, they're not that great, but fully respect what they do in their sport, because they are, truly fantastic athletes. And I think it's the same with now, ultra running, the trail running guys, they might not be fantastic, top level runners on the road, but man, they're world class, and same with, Richard, Dougal, and Braden, world class at triathlon and world class in their multi-sport, coast to coast.
2010, crikey, Cameron Brown, top of the podium again. The names that we've just been mentioning, the young Kiwis, Bozzone second, Doe third, the first six home, all Kiwis. The Kiwi threat they're lining you up. They're after you.
Yeah, what was I? How old would I have been then? 2010. So I was 28.
38.
38 would have been 38.
Yeah. So getting into my later years, and but yeah, still going well, and still loving it. So it was another tough day, and guys pushing you every single year. So still trying to. I think probably 15 years before that, you were washed up if you're a 38-year-old, but I was still loving the sport, still enjoying it. So I kept wanting to push myself, and when you're 38 and still winning, then you're thinking, well, shit, I'll keep going and see how long I can do this for.
It's a bit of a statement, an 8-minute win over these young guys. So you kind of set yourself up for the next year or two.
Yeah, I sort of wanted to give it back, and because you turn up to the press conferences and some of them, and they were going to kick your ass. You're an old man now, and I was you were trying to keep up with these young boys, and so I was just trying to do the same back to them. So it was great winning at at that age.
Did you get much smack talk from those guys?
I did, just a little bit, but it's all part of the sport. That's what it's all about. And Chris McCormick was a classic at that. He could get into anyone's head, and fire anyone up. So, but I was never fazed by it really. I just shut my mouth and knew, I'd try and do it on the race course, and that's what I tried to do.
2011, again, the familiar shape with 1 and 2. Again, you get the job done. Just the times were a little bit slower that year. Can you just remember why? We've got Cameron first, Terenzo Bozzone second, and Matthias Hecht in third place. Was that just a dodgy weather day? I'm struggling to recall.
Yeah.
I think
the whole day. Yeah,
I think 11 and 12 for both, or 12 definitely was, but 11 was. I remember they had to put straw down on the finish line to stop athletes falling over. That was a horrible weather day, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. No, it rained again the whole day, and it was probably one of the worst days actually for rain wise. It was there was just massive puddles out in that run course, and on that bike course as well. It was bloody tough conditions. So a very, very slow day, and I remember watching because it was my 10th title, and coming down that finish line, it was just a mud bath coming down. I'd hate to, probably 5 hours later when 500 people would come down that finish line, it would have been a mud bath coming down it.
Because if you remember on the other side of that, guys, in the women's race, it was a heck of a battle with it. That's when Sam Warriner won it with Mirinda Carfrae and Joe Lorne in third place. And I remember, that was a tough day. I remember, everyone just trying to do warm ups, trying to find a bit of clear space, going under anything you could find, like a tree, to try and do some sort of pump your tyres up or whatever. It was a horrid day, that one.
Yeah. Oh, it's, as I said, it's never nice when you're trying to swim 3.8k, ride 180k's, and run 42k's. But when you've got to do it when it's pissing down with rain the entire day, then just makes it that much tougher. And you want a good day for the race spectators, athletes, it's not a nice day trying to watch a race like that and support your athletes, because you're in that weather the whole day as well. So you take your hat off to all those people out there spectating and supporting athletes.
Rinny Carfrae and Joe Lorne in particular had a bit of a mare with punctures that day with the
they did.
Stuff coming up, which raises the question: have you ever had a puncture at Ironman New Zealand?
No, never at New Zealand. No. I think I had a few elsewhere in the world, but yep.
I'm touching wood everywhere at the moment.
Yeah. But I was extremely lucky, over those years.
So moving on to the next year, again, it's a weather impacted year, and one of the guys that rocks up is the man who at the time, via his successes in Austria, was the quickest bloke in the world in the sport. So this was kind of set for something really special, but the weather had other ideas. Yeah,
Marino Vananacker was he was the world record holder, and again, the race actually got delayed by a day. So it was fantastic that they were able to put the race on Sunday, but it ended up being just a half Ironman, 2k swim, 90k bike, and a 21k run, and it was great that we were able to do that. I mean, in some ways, I was lucky because it gave me the opportunity. I mean, I finished third that day in it, but 3 weeks later, I went over to Ironman Melbourne. I would have never done it, because I would have, if the race had happened, if Taupo had been an Ironman, I would have been toast for 3 weeks, but managed to skip across over to Australia and have a great battle with Craig Alexander, and and have one of the great battles that I've had with him. And he won the race, I was second, and we ran sort of 36, 37k's together and took it each other in a world-class field at the Asia Pacific Championships.
And that was your fastest ever Ironman?
Yeah, 8 hours and 12 seconds. So I know I could have gone under 8 hours, but no one had told me. I just didn't know if we were that close. And I think Crowe went 8:57, and I just had second in the bag, and I think Freddie Van Leer was third, he was a couple of minutes behind me, and I wish I'd known that, and I would have gone under 8 hours for the first time. So
I remember I was standing at the finish line of that race in 2012 in Melbourne, and doing the commentary of that. And I remember years later talking to Crowe about it, and he said it's still the time that he said all day. It's the only race he's ever thought of. I've not got this in the bag. I've not done this, until he actually got across the finish line. He reckons he's never been hurt so much by anybody his entire career as that day, which is an incredible race to watch.
Yeah, I think he said that put him in the box after that, because he'd won Hawaii in 2011, and then he'd trained for Melbourne, and he just I pushed him to the limits, and put him in. We both put ourselves in the box. I think I got plantar fascia after that race, because the 42k run, it was a point-to-point run from Frankston to straight to Melbourne, and we were running on a camber for 42k's, and I think I had plantar fascia after that for about a year afterwards. So it was one tough race.
Move ahead to the next year, and finally another Kiwi not one of the ones that we've talked about before, but another Kiwi rocks up. And this guy's got an incredible pedigree with a couple of Olympic medals and a world title, and probably a different attitude, like a real hell or glory attitude. No Ironman pedigree, but Bevan Doherty is one of the toughest hombres in the sport.
Yeah, he had an incredible day. Broke the course record. I think he went 8:15.
Yeah,
and I think I was going to retire after that race, so I had an absolute shocker. Just nothing went right. I think just one of those days. I think I was, nearly a 41-year-old, and thought, well, I think, I'm toast now. I think might be time to retire and finally, get a real job. But I think I still had an okay year after that, and that was one bad race, but I think I had a massive break at some point in the year, and it ended up, it was the best thing I could have done, and had some. Every time I did have a good break after a hard season, or that time I had 7 weeks off, and I came back better and stronger again after that.
And Marco Albert sort of split you and Bevan, but then the next year, in 2014, it's Marco on top of the podium, and you're in second, and Terenzo in third. Bevan, it's kind of gone a bit pear-shaped for him that day. But yeah,
I was just going to say, I remember that day. There's a really good photo of yourself, Terenzo, and Bevan running, and something went wrong for Bevan, and I think he just went over to the dropped his transponder off to some volunteers and buggered off up to his mum and dad's house in Taupo. went up the hill. I was like, I'm done. Bugger this. See you around.
Yeah, I think he had a few. I think he was thrown up on the run, and it was. I think the year before, I think he'd had crispy biscuits on the bike, and just a rookie. Nothing went wrong, and then the next year he came back and everything went wrong. So and then went to Hawaii, and it was another sort of a bit of a wake up call there as well. So he had smashed everyone that year, and I think sometimes you go in your first race and things go exceptionally well, and then then you change things up, and sometimes things go worse the next time. So one of the greats of New Zealand sport, that's for sure. A silver and a bronze at the Olympic Games, and an incredible short course athlete.
How did you feel like 2014? You're second, but your time here is really respectable, an 8:21. And given how you'd been feeling 12 months beforehand, just had the body come back together? That you talked about the plantar fascia issue and so on. Were you feeling a whole lot better about life at this point?
Yeah, definitely. It was just a bit of a mistake that we let Marco go on the bike. He made a move through an aid station that we had sort of all slowed down to pick up nutrition, and he made that winning move, and we were silly enough to that gap to open, and he got away, and we never saw him again. So but then I think I ended up winning Ironman Cairns in June later that year, and then I think I went up to, I think it was that year I might have gone up to Europe and had a good race in Europe as well, and then won Metaman in Asia as well. So it was a solid year in 2014.
Finally, though, a year later, you get back onto the top spot, and I guess you must have really sort of cherished this one. An 8:22 again. Terenzo, the poor bloke, you must have just completely been doing his head in by so much at this stage. And Dylan McNeice, whose pedigree, I guess, had been in the South Island with Challenge Wanaka. He'd had a lot of success there. So just tell us about that day, and how satisfying was it to, again, after a break of a few years, to go, you know what, I've still got this. I'm good enough to win this race.
Yeah, I mean, to do it, when you're 42, 43, and you probably thought, your last win was 2011, and to have sort of a 3-4 year gap in between those races, those wins, and to I think I was setting Terenzo up for his to break in that 8 hours, later on in his career, I was making him work hard for it, but every year those guys would push you, and I think that day again, it was they pushed me again all day. Dylan in the swim, absolutely thrashed us and had 2 or 3 minutes, and managed to have great bikes and runs again, and it was very, very cool to win again that year and do it in your early 40s, and I think at that stage I might have been one of the oldest guys to win an Ironman. There weren't many 40-year-olds winning Ironmans around the world, so that was pretty special.
Was it probably just you and Crowe? Maybe I know in the women's, the likes of Natasha Bardman was doing well, but in the men's, was it maybe down to just you two?
Yeah. I mean, as I said, you were there was no one, apart from Dave Scott. I think he got second in Hawaii when he was 42, but you were washed up when you were 40. Everyone was retired and no one really pushed on. So I was sort of changing the mold of that thinking and thinking, hey, if you do it and love it, you can keep going well into your 40s.
So 2016, Cam, I remember you turning up to that race, and you had the redemption the year before, and had a very good race, as we've just been talking about, in 2015 with Terenzo and Dylan in there. But you turned up 2016, and you didn't just get the race record, you smacked that race record. You had Joe Skipper second, Callum Millward in third, and you went 8:07, just under 8:08 that day. I mean, that was an incredible day's racing. And and bear in mind, you were coming up 44 at that point.
Yeah. That was one of those days that, I mean, the boys pushed me the whole way, and I ran with Callum for the first sort of. He absolutely took off in the first 10Ks of that run, and I think I let him go, and it was just too quick. I always ran the first 10K pretty quick, but he was I think 40 seconds up the road, but I caught him, and then we sort of ran shoulder to shoulder for a little bit, and then broke away from him. But then I was worrying about Joe Skipper because he was coming from behind and running exceptionally well as well. So I think he was in the end he caught Callum and at the late stages of the run, and it was, I think it was only sort of 2 minutes between the first three guys. So it was a bloody hard battle the whole day.
Must have been a fairly insane day on the bike. Looking at the bike splits were very good. Dougal Allen was slow out of the water, but 4:22, finally that Steve Larson record that we talked about in the last episode, that sort of seemed an unbeatable record that subsequently has been beaten. But what was it like out on the bike that day? I think you did a 4:29. Everyone just seemed to be flying.
Yeah, that was just really good conditions, and I think I felt pretty good the whole day, and everyone was starting to get quicker and quicker, and I think I think on we all sort of, it was very, very close coming off that bike together. Everyone was very, very close, and then. As I said, Joe was only sort of a minute and a half. I think he pretty much ran the same. He'd coloured his hair pink that day, and was just absolutely charging. So you were. I was leading it late in the race, but you could see him running well. So you're trying to get. Normally I was comfortable in the last 10K, thinking you were going to take the title. But when a guy like that was running just as quick behind you, then there was no easing off. It was trying to get to that finish line as quickly as I could.
Yeah, it's quite an amazing feat right the way through all of that, Cam. And from there, I mean, and to be able to sit back and think to yourself how many times you'd won that race at that point, and even beyond that, when we go through, some of the subsequent years, next 2 or 3 years, you're still on the podium and remaining competitive well into your mid-40s.
Yeah. No, I was still thriving off it, and trying to push myself. And there was, as I said, the last 3 years down there have been extremely average. I was getting 2 calf injuries every year, and it was putting me out of running for 3, 4, 5 months of the year, and it just even this year I've had 3 calf injuries, and So it's just more strength work in the gym. And I was very, very lucky in my early years. I never had many injuries at all, especially through those peak years. So I was extremely lucky. But I've picked picked them up in the last few years, that's for sure. So I'm doing a lot more strength work, and hopefully, I can get on top of it now, because I still want to push myself. And as I go into the age group ranks, I still want to race well and race hard and see how fast I can push myself. So, but yeah, it's hard when you do get injured all the time. So if I can be injury free, I know I can still have a few good results in me.
Looking at the guys in the subsequent years, obviously Terenzo, the first to go under 8 hours, and we was like, looking back, it was like no one's ever going to go under 8 hours.
I never thought that.
Yeah. Mike Phillips, superb I think on debut in Barcelona, something like 7:52, and he's superb. He's been really good in Topol. Braden Curry as well as someone else, again under 8 hours. You've talked about technology and so on, but is there anything else that's just different about those guys that they've been able to change it up? Is it just different training methods, nutrition? What are sort of some of the other factors that have just taken it up to that next level?
Yeah, I think nutrition has had seen massive improvements as well. But I think the main contributing factor has been the bike. The bike splits have just got faster and faster, and everyone. The cost of bikes is just absolutely horrendous. It's stupid what you can spend on a bike, and going into wind tunnel testing and testing of aerodynamics, and that it's a crazy part of the sport, which it's a shame it's so expensive. Back in the 80s, it was you spent $2,000 on a bike and you had a great bike, but nowadays you can be spending $20,000-$30,000 on a bike, and then it's everything else as well. So it's in some ways sad to see that it's got that cost involved in the sport, because the sport is pretty expensive, with entry fees, accommodation, and it's massaging, nutrition. It's one of those things about the sport that I don't like, because the cost factors. There's some great athletes that have not been able to continue on in the sport because of the sport has cost too much money. So I'd love to see in some ways, like other sports, where the level playing field is, like swimming with, limitations, and we've actually seen it in bike racing where bikes can't be under 6.8 kilos, and you've got to have a normal geometry on a bike. Everyone is on the same sort of geometry, but triathlon has probably pushed those levels in biking in terms of carbon fiber and sort of Superman bikes type things, and it's great to see. But in some ways, you'd like to see a capping of it. But that sport, sport continues to get faster and faster.
Just a thing I was wanted to ask you about, and is friendships you've made through the years in Ironman and the people you've come across. And the first guy I'd like to ask you about it specifically is someone that's called every single one of your victories across our spirit animal on the T-shirts here, right? Mike Riley. I mean, he's a fantastic mate of yours and a lovely guy, and done so much for the sport, and specifically here in New Zealand as well.
Yeah, it's funny when you don't hear Mike's calling an Ironman when you cross that finish line, because it's so synonymous with it, and his history in the sport, going back to I think 89 when he first called his first Hawaiian Ironman, and we were very, very lucky. Jane Patterson got him down here in the early years, and he came back every year, and just made for a different atmosphere, and he brought that atmosphere of bringing that finish line atmosphere to new levels, and it was fantastic to see. It was, I think, some of the best finishing times are around that 11-12 hours when people are coming through and trying to break that 17-hour barrier. And Mike shifted the game in race commentary and bringing people across that line with some great memories. And he's sadly missed, but we all will be missed at some point in the sport and move on. I'll be moving on, and everyone else, but I'll continue to love and enjoy the sport, and hopefully I'll be I want to turn my ambitions to some age group racing, and it's a weird feeling, being a professional since you were left school when you were 18. now at 50. This is, I've got a few more weeks of. I had to hold my professional license the whole year, but I've already sent an email off to Ironman to say I won't be competing as a professional athlete any longer. So it's a weird situation, because you love the sport still, but hey, the time is right to, guys are just getting too fast now, and I'm not recovering like I used to. So it's it's a good time to call it a day. And across today, I still did a 6-hour day, around the coast, 5 hours on the bike, and then an hour run off the bike. So I'm still pushing myself and still wanting to see what I can do as an old fart.
Yeah, because you're getting really old with your 6-hour day and stuff. Yeah, we can tell. Have you ever been out of love with the sport? Has there ever been a time where you thought, you know what, I just wouldn't mind going down to Queenstown and doing a bit of skiing, and just get away from this?
Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah. I mean, probably 2013, it was a year that, as I said, I was ready to retire and get out of the sport. But, then you have some time off and you find that love again and that passion, and, time away from something does heal you, and rest is a good thing sometimes. And but yeah, I want to enjoy some more things now. I love my gravel riding, and the South Island is pretty special with fantastic area to ride a gravel bike. So I'll be doing more of that sort of stuff, and hopefully I'll be on the start line in March for the 40th anniversary of Ironman New Zealand, and looking forward to it, and seeing what we can do.
So if you think about your legacy, Cameron, and what you've brought to the sport, I mean, what you've done in the sport, I don't believe will ever be equaled or bettered. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But if you look back at your legacy, and how do you put that into words? What you think you've done to the sport, and I guess what would you like to be remembered for in our sport?
Hopefully, you push people to be, hopefully I push guys like, Terenzo and Kieran, to push themselves, and like I looked up to Rick Wells. He made me push myself, believing that I could do it on the international, circuit as well. So that's all I care about, is if, I had some incredible victories, and I won a race that I dreamed about winning, but hopefully you inspired other people to do things, just like, guys like Rick Wells, Aaron Baker, Scott Molina, and all those guys I looked up to inspired me. They made me want to push myself, and every guy that you line up against on the start line, they inspire you in some ways, even like someone finishing in 15, 16 hours, or a good friend that's, had some ups and downs. Everyone inspires you in some way. So that's the unique thing about our sport. We're a sport where in the early days, professionals and amateurs competed on the same, started at the same time, and that's one thing I'd love to see again. We started either on the start line or 20 metres in front of the amateurs, and you're away. Now it's a little bit different. We're 10 minutes in front, but it's it's part of the sport where you can't turn up to compete against the All Blacks or some soccer team. You're only there watching, whereas everyone's on the start line together, and that's the cool thing about triathlon, running, multi-sport events. You're all in the same race.
I guess one final question, Cameron. What piece of advice would 50-year-old Cameron Brown give to 20-year-old Cameron Brown if he could?
Don't know. If it was a 12 or 13-year-old, I'd say get swimming as soon as you can. It's swimming is, biking and running is very, very easy to pick up, but swimming is such a technique sport. That's why I try and, the athletes I coach at St. Kitts and anyone I coach, swimming it's a tough sport to pick up, and if you can pick it up when you're young, then you'll pick it up easily. But when you're a little bit older, swimming is a lot tougher to try, as I said, as it is such a technique sport. So I would get myself in the pool and swimming plenty of Ks early on, but otherwise I probably wouldn't change too many things. What I did, how I did it, going through that short course into half Ironman, then into Ironman, that's the way I'd do it again, because it doing all that short course racing when I was young, helped the half Ironman, which helped the Ironman. So that would be the way I would tell anyone to do the sport. You don't want to get into doing Ironmans too young because it is so demanding. But now, things are changing. You've got a guy that's, you've got guys winning the Tour de France when they're 22 years of age, and you've got a guy winning Hawaii Ironman when they're 24 years of age. So, but hopefully they have that longevity in the sport that they can continue on for a long time. So that's the thing that, will they have the same sort of time in the sport that, because if you do start these sports, too young, then maybe your career will be shorter than what it would be if you started a little bit later.
Cameron, inspirational words, and inspiration is a word that has been repeated many times in relation to you, but the deeds, all your achievements over the years, you have inspired countless Kiwis and others around the world to get off their butts and get out and give it a go and find the love for the sport of Ironman. So look, and that includes Cameron Harper and I, just absolutely tremendous. So we're very, very grateful for you to just share your insights, share your history with everyone on the old school Tri Show. I'm still struggling to get the name out of it. My announcing isn't as polished as your Ironman performances. Thank you so much for your time, and we're really looking forward to seeing you in Taupo for the 40th anniversary, this time as an age grouper, and we know that you are going to be epic.
Cool. Hey, thanks very much, guys. Enjoyed it, and look forward to seeing you soon in the flesh. And hopefully we've got a good day on March the 3rd.
Something like that, yeah.
First Saturday of March.